Mr. Barr, we've never had a chance to meet, but I welcome you to this committee.
Thank you.
You seem like a rational person. I'd like to ask you a question. When you consider what Jeff Sessions went through as the Attorney General for President Donald Trump, where he was subjected to unrelenting criticism, primarily because, as a matter of conscience, he decided he had a conflict of interest and should remove himself from any decisions by the special counsel concerning the Russia investigation. When you consider that this president has lashed out on a personal basis against federal judges who ruled against his administration, when you consider the criticism which he has leveled at the chief law enforcement investigative agency of the Department of Justice, the FBI, as well as our intelligence agencies, when you see the exit lanes glutted, those leaving the White House at every single level, why do you want this job?
Well, because I love the department, I love and all its components, including the FBI. I think they're critical institutions that are essential to preserving the rule of law, which is the heartbeat of this country. And I'd like to think that there was bipartisan consensus when I was last in this position, that I acted with independence and professionalism and integrity, and I had very strong and productive relationships across the aisle, which were important, I think, to trying to get some things done. And I feel that I'm in a position in life where I can provide the leadership necessary to protect the independence and the reputation of the department and serve in this administration.
A number of my colleagues on both sides have asked, and I'll bet you'll hear more, questions along the line of what would be your breaking point? When would you pick up and leave? When is your Jim Mattis moment when the president has asked you to do something which you think is inconsistent with your oath? Doesn't that give you some pause as you embark on this journey?
It might give me pause if I was 45 or 50 years old, but it doesn't give me pause right now because I had a very good life. I have a very good life. I love it. But I also want to help in this circumstance, and I am not going to do anything that I think is wrong, and I will not be bullied into doing anything I think is wrong by anybody, whether it be editorial boards or Congress or the president. I'm going to do what I think is right.
You have a very nice family behind you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you introduced.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't want to give your grandson any career advice. He's received quite a bit this morning already. But he ought to consider, at least for some balance, being a public defender. One of the things that you alluded to as a major issue of concern is immigration. I'm glad you said it. Our government is shut down now over the issues of border security and immigration. And the Attorney General plays a central role, which many people don't know as they look at the Department of Homeland Security for most of the action on the issue of immigration. I was surprised at the exit interview by General Kelly when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Attorney General Sessions was responsible for the zero tolerance policy that was announced in mid-2018, and that it was because of that policy, that was one of the reasons why he was being asked to leave. That's the first I'd ever heard. Are you familiar with the zero tolerance policy?
Generally, Senator, yes.
I can tell you that it was an effort to take escorted children, infants, toddlers, and children, and forcibly remove them from their parents at the border. This policy by our government separated up to 2,800 of those children and put them into the system, the same system as unaccompanied children. The results were horrible. I saw them firsthand. And you have alluded in your opening statement to stopping people from crashing through the border, breaking and flouting the laws. Those young children, for the most part, were being brought to this country by their parents to seek asylum. You can present yourself at America's border and seek asylum legally, can you not?
Yes, Senator, you can.
So separating those children from their parents in an effort, as Attorney General Sessions explained, to get tough with families presenting themselves at the border was a policy decision on his part. Do you agree with that policy decision?
Well, I'm not sure I know all the details because one of the disadvantages I have is I'm not in the department and don't really have the same backing I did in terms of information that I had last time. But my understanding is that DHS makes the decision as to who they're going to apprehend and hold. Now, you can claim asylum, but that doesn't mean you can waltz into the country
No,
freely.
of course not.
Okay, and you have to be processed. And my understanding is a majority of people do not qualify for asylum. But DHS makes a decision who to hold and charge with the crime of illegal entry. And then they refer it to the Department of Justice. And I believe the department's policy, when the department says zero tolerance, they're saying whatever DHS refers to us in the way of illegal entry prosecutions, we'll prosecute. Now what is being done, because I think the administration has changed the policy, is DHS is not referring for prosecution family units that would lead to the separation of children from the family
It's
unit.
true that the president and the administration abandoned the policy after there was a public reaction to the separation of these children. I'm concerned, I want to go back to your University of Virginia Miller Center speech, which is...
It's a gem, isn't it?
It's a classic, and it goes back many years. But you described your previous tenure as Attorney General, and you said, after being appointed, I quickly developed some initiatives on the immigration issue that would create more border patrols, change immigration rules, streamline processing. It would furthermore put the Bush campaign ahead of the Democrats on the immigration issue, which I saw as extremely important in 1992. I felt that a strong policy on immigration was necessary for the president to carry California, a key state in the election. That's a pretty revealing statement about a political agenda.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, because as I've said, the attorney, and I've spoken on this a number of times, there's sort of three roles the Attorney General plays. One is the enforcer of the law, and that the role of the Attorney General is to keep the enforcement process sacrosanct from political influence. The second one is as legal advisor, and that is in the Judiciary Act of 1789, legal advisor to the President and the Cabinet. And there I say the Attorney General's role is to provide, unvarnished, straight-from-the-shoulder legal advice as to what the Attorney General believes is the right answer under the law. And then the third role is the policy role, which is law enforcement policy, which includes immigration policy. And there you are a political subordinate of the president, and it's okay to propose policies that are politically advantageous.
Well,
but I have to say that, that was casual conversation. The point was I was pursuing a strong immigration policy even when I was deputy, long before, the election was on the horizon. And in traveling around the country, visiting the border, paying a lot of visits to California, I saw how important the issue was. And I thought the administration had to be more responsive to it. And yes, there was a political benefit to it.
I just have a short time left. The chairman, our new chairman, congratulations, Graham, noted 10 years of work by a number of us on this committee on a bipartisan basis to deal with criminal sentencing and prison reform. And the First Step Act, signed by the president around Christmas, I think is a significant departure. I learned, as many have, that the approach, the get tough approach that we imposed with 100-to-1 sentencing disparity between crack and powder didn't work. Did not work. The number of drugs being sold on the street increased. The price of the drugs went down. The people being incarcerated went up dramatically. And we learned the hard way. That was not the way to deal with the issue. And now we're trying to clean up 10 years later, or more, 25 years later, from the 100-to-1 disparity. I voted the wrong way on 100-to-1. Now I know, in retrospect. You've made some hardline statements about this issue in criminal sentencing in the past. And many of us believe, on a bipartisan basis, we've got to look at this anew. and not repeat these mistakes again. So I would like to hear your assurance that you have learned, as I have, that there is a better way, could be a more effective way, and that as Attorney General, you will help us implement the First Step Act and design the second step.
Absolutely, Senator. From my perspective, the very draconian penalties on crack were put into place initially because when the crack epidemic first hit, it was like nuclear weapons going off in the inner city. And as I think you'll recall, a lot of the community leaders at that time were saying, you gotta, this is killing us, you have to do something. So the initial reaction of draconian penalties was actually, trying to help those communities. And over time, and now the same leaders are saying to us, this has been devastating. Generation after generation of our people are being incarcerated, have been incarcerated and lost their lives because of this, and you have to change the policies. And I think that is, we should listen to the same people we were listening to before. I supported generally strong penalties on drugs because, not just crack, because I felt the money involved was so high that, you needed something to counteract that. I also said repeatedly over the years of the drug war that I felt that the head of the snake is outside the country. And the place to fight this aggressively is at the source more than on the street corner. And I used to say we could, stack up generation after generation of people in prison, and it'll still keep on coming. And so I always felt that, and I support a adjustment to these sentences and the safety valve and so forth. To me, the corollary is we have to really start thinking and using all our national forms of power in the sense of our diplomacy and our economic leverage and so forth to get better results overseas. So, for example, now fentanyl is sort of the new crack. Fentanyl and fentanyl analogs are sort of the new crack, and they're coming in from China. So,
Across the Mexican border.
Correct.
At ports of entry, 90%.
Mm-hmm. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, which is I understand that things have changed since 1992. I held on a little bit longer to keeping strong sentences maybe than others. Part of that was I wasn't involved in the business anymore. I wasn't at Justice Department looking at reports and studies, learning about different things in the country. I was, arguing with the FCC about telecommunications rules. So,
Ms. Barr?
yes.
That was a great answer, and it was long-winded.
Okay.